Hey Shooby-Doodlers, how are you doing? Well, I've had a message from Carlo Antonin who says, simply, how can I be a great artist? That's a really complicated question. Let's not talk about it. Let's talk about it. Well, Carlo, I think we first of all have to define what we mean by a great artist. I think there are kind of three definitions, three versions of great artists. There are the great artists like Rembrandt and Picasso, who will be remembered forever and ever. You go to museums to see their work, but they're all dead. The second kind of great artists are those who are well known now. I can't think of any names offhand. Anyway, you know, the people who you really admire and look up to, who are still alive and still working, and who are kind of the great artists of our day. And then there's just being a great artist, being good at what you do is a different thing altogether. So let's have a look at Picasso and that kind of thing. That's history. The really great people. Picasso was great in his time, and I think he will always be great. But he was great because he lived in his time, and the time was right for him. There was a whole lot of new ideas for him to discover. Possibly other people could have discovered that at the same time if he wasn't alive. But anyway, he was the person who did it. That opportunity of time and history was there, and he took it, but he took it because of who he was. His dad was a painter. He'd been trained as a painter from a child. Painting was his life. He had this way of viewing things, and he worked at it. He worked like a slave. He worked and he worked and he worked. He was intelligent, he was clever, and he thought about it. So if you want to be that kind of an artist who's going to be on museum walls for the rest of history, you've got to do the work, but you've got to be lucky to live at exactly the right time where what you do, what really interests you, what you have to say to the world just hits that sweet spot. They're eternal truths. That's what you want to work on if you want to do those kind of things. Now, if you want to be famous now and you don't care about after you've died, then what you really need to do is be a really good marketing person, and you need to stop not thinking about what do I want to do. You've got to think about what do they want to see, and don't worry about art and pouring out your soul. You've got to think about what are people going to come and pay to see? What are people going to pay to buy? How am I going to get my work seen everywhere? You've got to do something that people really want to see, and that is marketing. So you start off by thinking, what do people like? Okay, I am going to provide that. And then to be that great sort of well-known artist, you've got to do a lot of marketing, and you've got to be prepared to do TV shows, interviews, all sorts of things, just to get famous. It doesn't really matter about the work in a way. It's about being famous. Now, the third kind of thing is being great at being an artist. So there are hundreds of people who aren't famous, who are still alive. There are lots of people who died who aren't terribly famous, but who did fantastic work. And so if you haven't got it in you that you really want to be famous, if you're not that bothered about being terribly rich and all that kind of stuff, then just be a great artist. And that means doing the work. It's like I say on the She Rayner Drawing Channel, don't talk about it, do it. And you just got to get on and do it. And each time you do a new piece of work, it will spring an idea in for the next piece of work, and you just keep following these kind of things inside, and you keep improving your skills, improving your craft, and then suddenly one day you might find you become famous because everybody thinks, hey, this person's really got something to say, something to show the world. But if you're not too worried about that, then at least you know that you have done the very best that you can, and that you have added your tiny little bit to the advancement of the world and the universe and everything in it. You've done your little bit of job for the arts, and in your tiny little way you've become a great artist, even if you haven't become an internationally renowned museum drawer or a kind of marketing genius. Just do the work.